Today is the first public day of the 2022 New York Auto Show, and our friends over at the World Car Awards earlier this week took to the stage and gave this car right here the Triple Crown: World Electric Vehicle of the Year, World Design of the Year, and the penultimate World Car of the Year. It beat out hot players like the Ford Mustang Mach-E, Mercedes EQS, as well as the Audi e-tron GT. The 2022 Hyundai Ioniq 5 is the first model to ride on the South Korean conglomerate's eGMP dedicated electric platform. Now following this will be an Ioniq 6, which is a sleek four-door sedan, and then an Ioniq 7, which is a three-door large crossover. Up front on this limited trim Ioniq 5, we've got full LED headlights, including these U-shaped rectangular DRLs, which look really cool, but also incorporate what Hyundai calls the pixel. All these little squares in here make up the shape of this rectangle, and it's a nice contrast from the origami shape of the rest of the car. Things get even cooler at night when these vertical LED light strips right here light up to give this full width, really modern looking light array, and you have to see it for yourself because it is quite cool in person. Behind this black panel here is going to be some of the sensors for the adaptive cruise and the other highway drive assist features, and then you've got a camera right there for the 360-degree surround view monitor. Over on the side here, we see this diagonal line that comes straight from the concept car and takes a page out of the parametric dynamics playbook that we see on the current Hyundai Elantra. In this shooting star matte paint, it's pretty prominent, as are the wheel arches and the trim on the bottom of the doors. On limited grades, this is a silver shiny finish. On lower trims, SC and SEL, it's going to be matte black. These are the 20-inch wheels that are only available on this top limited trim. They look very futuristic, they're directional, and they give me sort of a transmission gearing vibe, or maybe even a turbine. They look perfect on this car. They're wrapped in Michelin Primacy Tour 255/45 width tires, making them some of the wider options in the class. The placement of those wheels contributes to the distortion you might experience when trying to gauge the size of the Ioniq 5. At 118 inches long, the wheelbase on this car is actually 4 inches longer than that of the Hyundai Palisade, which is the largest car they make. Now, that car overall in length is longer than this, but you can really see the difference in the size of the front and rear overhangs. This is about 2 inches shorter than its platform sibling, the Kia EV6, as well as the Tesla Model 3. In general, it kind of fits right in the middle of the pack in the EV space. Its footprint is still smaller than that of a Ford Mustang Mach-E, a Jaguar I-Pace, or the Tesla Model Y, but this is longer than a Volkswagen ID4, a Volvo C40 and XC40, as well as the Genesis version, the GV60. Earning the title of Electric Vehicle of the Year means the bits under the hood and under the car itself must be pretty good, right? Well, Hyundai's eGMP platform has 2 battery sizes and numerous different output options. Here we have the 77.4 kilowatt hour battery. In this format, it's a dual motor all-wheel drive system. Up front, we have a 99 horsepower electric motor, and the back a 221 horsepower motor for 320 total horsepower. If you elect to go rear-wheel drive single motor only, that motor in the back is 225 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque. There's also a 58 kilowatt hour battery option. It's a little bit delayed in terms of availability for the Ioniq 5 here, but the Kia EV6 is currently available with that one. That is a base model rear-wheel drive only situation. It only puts out about 167 horsepower and 228 pound-feet of torque. Now, Kia has already confirmed the existence of an EV6 GT. That model will stick with the 77.4 kilowatt hour battery we have here, but it really beefs up the front and rear electric motors. Up front, it's 217 horsepower, out back 367, for what is expected to be around 584 or so total horsepower. That's going to give it a 3.5-second dash to 60, rivaling cars like the Porsche Taycan 4S, which is the base model Taycan, but it's still a Porsche Taycan. That particular setup is rumored to make its way into the upcoming Ioniq 5N, which has been seen spied all over the place testing, especially at the Nürburgring. Being a Veloster N driver myself, I'm very excited to see how that one turns out. Front seat comfort's going to get a 9 out of 10 for me. These seats are 8-way power adjustable on this side and over on the passenger side. They both have 2-way power lumbar support. Being 5'9", I have absolutely enormous amounts of headroom left. Of course, I could lift the seat up higher and reduce that a little bit, but in this position, the way I want it, I have got plenty of space up top. This side gets 2 special extra features, including the 2-person memory seat settings and the lounge chair function. Ripped straight out of a Kia Carnival, this function allows you to put the seat in max recline, and it activates a footrest right here. So I push the button right here once, it's going to say check the surroundings in the back, make sure the coast is clear, and then you hold it again, and away you go. The rear seat receives high marks from me as well. This is where I had my seat before, and there's about 2 or 3 inches of knee room left. I can slide the bench forward and aft if I want to do that and give some more cargo room. There are net style map pockets right here, air vents, and we have window shades to block out the sun. Plus, there's this panoramic moonroof that is large and in charge, and it has a power operated sunshade if you want to close it up and you don't want to buy an aftermarket option. But does this interior pass the tall person tally? With Hyundai's Smart Access tailgate in play, we can magically open the rear tailgate, which is somewhat acutely angled if you ask me, but not a problem. Underneath, we've got 27.2 cubic feet of cargo space with the second row up. Fold those suckers down, you get 60.2 cubic feet. Unfortunately, you can't actually do it. There are no levers back here to do it. You have to go around to the second row, but those seats do actually slide forward and backwards, giving you some flexibility between cargo capacity and passenger volume. Now, there's also this 2-position tonneau cover that's right here. And then last thing I'll point out is under the floor, we've got some extra storage for the EVSC charging cable right here, as well as a tire repair kit over there, because there is no onboard spare tire. You'll notice there is no rear wiper blade back here, and there's not one stored up there. Instead, there's actually space right there for air to push water off the windshield because it's not really that steep. At least that's what Hyundai claims. I've spoken to some owners and they say that is actually not exactly very effective, and they wish there was, in fact, a wiper blade on the car. Instead of air vents right here, we have the 2 USB charging ports and a small cubby area. The map pockets back here are of the mesh variety, and then your air vents are located here on the B pillars. The ambient lighting actually comes up through this floating space right here on the armrest, so that looks really neat, but it also surrounds the speaker grills too. On this limited trim, we have sunshades back here, a center armrest that folds down right here, and has 2 sort of smallish cup holders right there. Those will definitely not fit a large McDonald's cup. But interestingly, there's actually more padding on this armrest than you find on the door armrests over there. Up front here, both seats have 2-way up and down headrest, height adjustable seatbelts over there, and then this of course is the black leatherette option. But if you don't want black, there is also a light gray option. However, if you go for this shooting star matte paint exterior or the digital teal color, that 2-tone gray is actually the light gray on the seats and the bottom of the doors, but green in the center of the doors and in some other areas like up on the dash. Moving over to the dashboard, we have this sort of horizontal tray system right here where the integration between the air vent and the design looks pretty good. Down below here, this is just a regular bin style glove compartment. In other markets, this is a full drawer. It actually is a very large, wide drawer that slides out. I believe due to crash safety standards, that was not allowed here in the US, but that would have been pretty cool. Then over here on the dashboard, we have the dual 12.3-inch LCD screens. I will say I'm not as keen on this white bezel system they've got going on, and it sounds like this will probably carry over to all the other Ioniq models. We've seen spy shots of the 6 sedan with this same exact setup. The theming on the screens is white, so that makes it blend in a little bit better, but at night it's going to be black, so that black and white contrast is just a little interesting to me. I don't know why they did that. I kind of hope somebody makes a wrap for this that you can cover it up yourself and make it black bezels. Before I move on to the center console, I just want to point out that this little pad over here on the left side of the far left screen is actually a magnet board. So you can tack on little magnets on there and, reminders and notes and anything like that you might have on your fridge, those can all go right there. So that's pretty cool. The center console here is sort of minivan style in the fact that it has a large open area right here and the armrest is a single unit. It can raise and lower like this, but this whole apparatus itself can also slide. There's a handle right here. You can pull it back, pull it forward, do whatever you want with that. That's pretty neat. In other markets, that's actually powered. Here, of course, like I just showed you, it's all manually controlled. Of course, we have 2 cup holders right there. There are going to be 2 USB ports down there and the Qi wireless charging pad. And then, again, this sort of open space where you could put a large purse or whatnot right there. Down here is where you plug in your cord for the wired Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, then a 12-volt outlet right there, and some storage beneath that. Unlike the Kia EV6, this panel right here is just to control the climate. There is no way to switch between this and any other part of the touchscreen functions. So if you were not a fan of having to switch between the two to do certain things, this will be a little bit more your speed. The panel is all touch capacitive, so you tap right there, it immediately responds, no problems there. If you don't want to use this panel to control your climate, there is a climate button right here you can tap, and that'll pull up the main menu for climate on the screen right there. So you have more controls of the temperature, you can do the sync functions, the driver only, all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of cool sort of automated climate functions like auto dehumidify, smart ventilation, things like that, so that's pretty neat. The one thing that is interesting is there is no physical home button on this panel, which I think could have been used right here. Having a map button and a navigation button seems a little redundant. If that one had been home, I think that would have made a little bit more sense. The home button is actually up here in the top corner. We do have a volume knob right here and then a tuning toggle over there. I don't really use tune knobs or toggles anyway, so that's not a problem for me. But I do kind of wish for symmetry they had made them both knobs. This is your button for the 360-degree surround view camera. You push it once, that's going to pull up your different camera views. You can go through different angles like this, overhead from the back, where we just had it up front pointing forward, and then your side corners on the side of the car. And then in a very cool twist, we have this very luxury car-esque 360 model of the car. You can spin it around like this and get a 360 view from this perspective, which is very neat and really welcome in a car that costs only $55,000. Unlike some other EVs, we actually do have an EV start-stop button right there. You don't really hear anything happen when you press the button, just the chime and the little jingle that Hyundai includes in their cars to let you know we're turning it on. This button that oddly just says warmer right here is actually how you get to your seat ventilation, seat heating, and other functions like that. The steering wheel is a very unique design. This is like nothing we've seen from any current Hyundai, Kia, or Genesis product, except for the fact that it is a two-spoke design. The 4 dots here are actually Morse code for the letter H, of course, for Hyundai. So that's pretty neat. At first, people were like, why didn't they just put the Hyundai logo there? But this is a sort of cool way to do it differently because, of course, this is EV. So on the left and right of the steering wheel, we have this gloss black panel that covers the functions on either side. This is kind of like what Mercedes-Benz is doing with their newer models. But if you push down this area, the whole panel goes down, and that's pretty neat. I would say, I don't know if it's a cost-saving measure just to have one panel like that, but it can't be too much savings, right? I don't know. But it does look cool, and it especially looks good at night. On the left, we have your phone functions, voice control, radio mode, as well as the star function, which you can set to be any different thing you want, such as phone projection. On the right, we have your controls for your adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist, as well as the ability to go through the functions on the screen up there. Then down here behind the steering wheel is your shift knob. It's just a simple twist of this right here that'll get you into the gear you need to, and then the button right here is for park. So when you equip the Ioniq 5 like we have it here with a dual motor all-wheel drive setup that has 320 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque available immediately at 0 RPM. Now, while that's not as fast as even the Kia EV6 or the fastest non-GT version of the Mustang Mach-E, it is still plenty quick for the kind of people who will be driving this, and it will definitely make your passengers squeal when you give it a nice punch of the throttle in sport mode. The elephant of the room is in fact the weight of this car, which is just around 4,600 pounds. It's heavier than the EV6, but it's also a little bit lighter than the porkiest Volkswagen ID4 or non-GT Mustang Mach-Es. In my experience, however, using the paddles on the shifter to modulate the amount or the intensity of the regenerative braking is actually the most fun and, in my opinion, effective way to manage this car's stopping ability. With regen set to automatic, which you get to by holding down the right paddle, the car will actually automatically ramp up the intensity of the regen as you are slowing down. But I actually found that it's even more fun to manually shift from level 0 all the way up to I-pedal as needed. Very quickly, you will be able to gauge how capable the car is of braking among those 3 or 4 different settings, and after a while it becomes sort of like shifting gears with the paddles. It's very engaging and it makes the car even more fun to drive than it already is. In my opinion, leaving the car in I-pedal mode at all times is a little bit overkill because it's just going to be doing a lot of this, a lot of head jerking, a lot of stopping pretty abruptly. So what I do is actually leave it in one of the 3 levels, depending on what situation I'm in, and then holding down the left paddle, which allows you to temporarily be in max regen mode. So right now I'm going to start holding down the brake, and we are braking like as if I was using the real brakes, and we're going to come to a complete stop. And you may not be able to see it on this camera, but once you get to a full stop, the regen mode switches to stop. Handling is, of course, a little bit better than it should be for a car that weighs this much. We have that large battery on the floor that's keeping the weight or the center of gravity down. And, of course, this car looks a little bit shorter in person outside than it actually is on the inside. This feels taller and more upright, like a mid-sized crossover. And because of that, you're definitely going to still feel some body roll. It's going to lean in the corners, but it's very controlled and honestly pretty fun to drive. The 255 width tires also really help with grip. I've never once lost control or lost traction when going through corners in this thing. It's very confidence inspiring, so the width choice on these tires was a very good one in my opinion. Steering feedback is pretty average for a midsize or compact crossover. It doesn't really have too much feedback. Some people have said it doesn't have any. I would say there's a tiny bit coming through the steering wheel, but nothing like the Mazda CX-30 I just had, where you can really feel what's going on the pavement. This is perfectly adequate for the kind of car that it is and should do the job because it points you where you need to go very directly, and I really have no other complaints about it. So steering gets thumbs up. The ride quality is smooth and comfortable, soaking up pretty much everything you throw at it on the pavement. Being in Atlanta, you typically have to brace for impact when you see something really rough coming up ahead. In this car, it actually surprises you every time by gently overcoming whatever you're about to roll over. There's been no better place to test all of that out than on the freeways of Atlanta, where I also got to sample Highway Drive Assist 2, which is on this limited trim only, and is their level 2 equivalent autonomous driving system. It combines a smart cruise control with active lane keeping assist to do a lot of the driving for you. Now, of course, it's not a hands-free system yet, but you can really pretty much leave one hand on the wheel most of the time and you'll be fine. It does all of the work for you. Plus, we've got the augmented reality head-up display, so if you've got the navigation system, the built-in navigation system, not Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, it has to be the integrated navigation. But if that is running, you'll also see arrows pointing where you're going to go on the road ahead, which is very, very cool. It's not as immersive as like Mercedes-Benz's system, but the fact that you have it in a Hyundai is pretty nice. It also has a navigation-based cruise control system which actively changes your speed based on the speed limit. Now, of course, you don't have to set it to the speed limit exactly. You can set it to whatever you want, but if you do set it to precisely the speed limit, it'll know based on the navigation system when the speed limit changes, and it'll effectively change your speed when that happens. The car will also do lane changes for you, so if I do a flick of the turn signal, it's actually going to look in the blind spot and find out if there is room to do it, and it will actually do the lane change for you. Now, of course, in that situation, there was no room, but let's try it again. Let's see if it'll work. All right, here we go. Oh, no, it was like, never mind. So this is one of the issues I've had with the system. On a busy, freeway like we're on right now, you may have a gap ready to go, but it takes so long that that gap often disappears before it can actually do the lane change. So that's a little bit frustrating. Honestly, you're better off just doing the lane change yourself. As I mentioned earlier, this is a very quiet car. At 50 miles per hour, I was able to manage 71 decibels, which is very, very competitive with luxury cars. Now, we'll have to wait and see if Alex's long-term EV6 all-wheel drive bests that, but for now, this is a very, very quiet car. Fuel economy has been pretty good. I've been averaging 3.1 miles per kilowatt hours. Now, this dual-motor all-wheel drive variant can go 256 miles between fill-ups, but that's actually not been an issue for me. As a Veloster N owner, my car, when I'm driving it around town, only really manages to get 250 miles between fill-ups. So I have never once experienced any range anxiety. Now, I've also been able to take that car over 300 miles on the highway from here to just outside Greensboro, North Carolina. So if that's the kind of distance you're trying to go, I would opt for the single-motor rear-wheel drive variant of this, because in this car, it can hit 303 miles. Now, that's less than the EV6, which can hit 310, but that is definitely something to do with the sleeker shape of that car.